Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The trial for a self-declared serial killer continues in a Winnipeg courtroom. Jeremy Skibicki has admitted to killing Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Buffalo Woman. His defense are claiming not criminally responsible due to mental illness. Today in court, a Winnipeg police detective spoke about going through over 2,000 hours of video surveillance during the investigation. With more, here is T.R. Wheatley, and a warning: there are disturbing details in this report.
Video surveillance was the focus inside the courtroom on Monday. A member of the Winnipeg Police Homicide Unit was put on the stand by the Crown to start the second week of the trial for Jeremy Skibicki. Detective Paul Barber testified that Winnipeg police reviewed thousands of hours of video surveillance after Skibicki's confession. He was originally arrested May 17, 2022, after Rebecca Contois' partial remains were found in garbage bins in the back alley of his apartment building. Court heard there was no video relating to Buffalo Woman, as most video surveillance is usually kept between 4 to 6 weeks. Buffalo Woman is believed to have been killed 2 months prior in March 2022. On the stand, Barber spoke about 15 different videos, including 2 from here, Nidenawemak, an Indigenous-run homeless shelter in the inner city where surveillance tracked Morgan Harris. The first video was from inside on the morning of April 30th, 2022, where Skibicki is seen waving to Harris and later approaches her at her table. The next video was at 1:53 a.m., the morning of May 1st. Harris was shown getting thrown out of the shelter. In the video, she was wearing the 3/4 length jacket and baby blue hoodie that were later found inside Skibicki's apartment. Harris is believed to have been killed on May 1st. Surveillance between these two businesses just blocks away was also mentioned by Barber. On 2 separate days, Barber testified Skibicki wheeled over a city garbage bin to dump both Harris and Mercedes Myron. On May 3rd, police said Skibicki disposed of Harris and came back wheeling the bin again with Myron on May 6th. The contents of the bin were not taken to the Prairie Green landfill until May 16th. Around that same time, Rebecca Contois' remains ended up in residential garbage bins down the back alley of Skibicki's apartment building. Other video surveillance mentioned in court, a nearby parking lot to Skibicki's apartment, showed him walking on 2 separate occasions with Myron and Contois. Both women were wearing clothes that were found inside his apartment and garbage bins in the alley. Court also heard that Skibicki knew Contois for a longer period of time. Barber testified Skibicki tried to add her to his residential lease on March 8. Barber also said police had video showing Contois and Skibicki grocery shopping together on May 3rd at a nearby store. The other videos shown in court are from residential homes in and around the back alley from different times when Skibicki disposed of the 3 women.
Thanks, TR. There were also some family members of a woman whose DNA was found inside Jeremy Skibicki's apartment. Last week, we told you about the profiles found of 16 women inside Skibicki's apartment during the police investigation. This, of course, does not necessarily mean they were victims of a crime. The family of Andrea Cedarwall contacted APTN after seeing her name in a story we wrote. Andrea died back in December 2023, and her family was told it was a drug overdose. The family is aware that Skibicki was already in custody, but couldn't shake the eerie feeling that their loved one was inside his apartment. So they decided to make a 2-hour trip from Kenora to attend court, where they got to speak with Crown prosecutors during a break. Here again is T.R. Wheatley with more.
The brother and twin daughters of Andrea Cedarwall are taking a brief moment to themselves outside this Winnipeg courthouse. They had been inside, listening to the ongoing trial of Jeremy Skibicki, who was admitted to killing 4 Indigenous women.
Always willing
Justin Cedarwall says his sister had a protective spirit.
As much as possible, she wore her heart on her sleeve, and she was always there for others.
His sister Andrea's DNA was found on a cup inside Skibicki's apartment back in 2022 after police searched his place. Up until now, Cedarwall didn't know much about what happened to his sister.
We were advised that she had an overdose and she was found in a bathtub, and that she had a brain injury due to lack of oxygen.
It was a shock to see his sister's name in media reports, especially after reading that Skibicki killed his victims in his bathtub. That eerie similarity had him and his family make the 2-hour trip here. Inside the courthouse on a break, Crown prosecutors told the family that Andrea gave statements and cooperated with the investigation. Had she have still been alive, she would have been called as a material witness, and there is no evidence she knew any of the women killed.
That's a true testament to my sister. Even though she lived a hard lifestyle, she was always willing to go out and help others as much as possible.
For her twin daughters, Alexia and Lacey Cabistra, while they find some comfort in knowing their mom may have helped in this case, they want to take some time to process being inside the same courtroom as Kibiki.
A new feeling, and I wasn't really used to it. It's kind of like weird knowing that she's involved in something like this big. I don't know, it's a weird feeling. Definitely something a 15-year-old shouldn't go through.
The siblings, who are 15 now and being raised by their father, want people to remember their mom for the kind person she was. Before coming here, they spent time this weekend looking at their memories they have with their mom.
I saw videos of when me and Lexi were just babies, and mom just any mom would do, make us babies laugh and be happy.
The twins say coming here has helped them with some closure. They plan to now focus on becoming medical doctors when they grow up, hoping to make their mother proud. As for their uncle Justin, he says his focus now is Andrea's 2-year-old son.
He calls me dad, he calls my wife mom.
While seeing pieces of a sister every day and the 3 children she left behind. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
For more on this trial, you can head over to our website, aptnnews.ca, for stories by web reporter Kathleen Martins. And if you're triggered by any of this, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG2S support line. The number is 1-844-413-6649. It's day 1 of the Raphael Andre public hearings in Linguère, Quebec, just south of Montreal. The inquiry will attempt to shed light on the circumstances that led to the Innu man's death. APTN's Maricela Amador was at the courthouse.
In January 2021, the lifeless body of Raphael Napa Andre was found inside a portable toilet just steps away from a drop-in shelter in Montreal. He had been forced to leave the shelter due to the COVID-19 restrictions and a curfew that was in place at the time.
La mort tragique de mon frère, il fallait que ça arrive pour qu'on voit, pour qu'on ouvre nos yeux, tout le monde.
Since then, Andre's family has been waiting for answers.
Monsieur Andre.
Today marks a step forward as a public hearing finally began. Quebec coroner Stephanie Gamache will oversee the inquiry.
Malgré tous mes efforts sur de longs mois pour atteindre cet objectif en lien avec le décès de Napa Raphael, les informations que j'ai obtenues à l'époque sont restées fragmentaires. Malgré mon accès à un dossier médical fort volumineux, mais qui s'est avéré au moment de l'investigation incomplet.
Gamache said that her investigation raised questions for which she did not have answers, and it made it impossible for her to finalize her report into the death of the 51-year-old. She felt it was necessary to call for this inquiry. Montreal-based activist and executive director of the Montreal Native Women's Shelter attended the hearing.
I had the Raphael Andre memorial tent, so that was in reaction to his death. And we knew that during this curfew that people were going to die. So this is why, when it happened, that we came together.
In his testimony, Detective Sergeant Alexandre Bertrand said that nothing at the scene indicated that a violent crime had taken place, nor that a third party was involved.
So far, it's pretty emotional to hear how they're portraying him, and it's kind of stereotypical.
Olivia Audet, officer with provincial police, testified that at the time of death, Andre had an active warrant for his arrest because he allegedly threatened a frontline worker in 2020.
Would have liked to have heard about who he was as an Innu man. That was not brought. You know, who he was as a person, not necessarily his criminal record or the fact that he drank. Like, why aren't we talking about who he was? And why don't we look at all those contributing factors?
According to an occupational therapist who treated Andre on and off, the homeless man suffered from severe alcoholism, anxiety, and cognitive issues due to repeated trauma to the head. She stated that Andre received care and support from services on several occasions prior to his death. Testimonies will continue over the next 2 weeks and will conclude in June. Andre's family was not at the courthouse today, but are scheduled to testify next month. The hearings will also include testimonies from frontline workers and experts. Maricela Amador, APTN National News, Longueuil, Quebec.
Thanks, Maricela. The wildfire season is off to an unprecedented start. Details coming up after the break. Welcome back. It is mid-May and wildfire season has already begun. The next 48 hours will be critical for crews battling wildfires in northern British Columbia. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings us this update.
The northeastern community of Fort Nelson is at the mercy of weather today as wildfires burn only 2.5 kilometers away from the western edge of town. The intense Parker Lake wildfire is now over 50 square kilometers. This, along with 2 other massive holdover fires nearby, have been prompting evacuation alerts and then orders. Around 4,700 residents have fled Fort Nelson and the nearby Fort Nelson First Nation, driving nearly 400 kilometers south to Fort St. John.
So we had already left Fort Nelson earlier in the day for a trip down to Grand Prairie just for the weekend. And when we got to Grand Prairie around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just as we were pulling into the city, we were getting alerts on our phones and seeing on Facebook that an evacuation notice was put in place. And then shortly after that, the order was put in place. So it was a bit of a panic. We were debating whether or not we should have turned around and go back to Fort Nelson, through the night and grab what we can and come back south, but we decided to just stay in Grand Prairie and traveled to Fort St. John yesterday to be with more members of the community.
Ryan Dickey, along with the Doig River First Nation local drummers, organized this powerful drum prayer Sunday night.
I walked away feeling more hopeful, feeling stronger, which is really, that's the essence that we've been taught, and the power and the medicine that the drum provides, and being able to do that for our community in times like these is really important to us as young drummers from Fort Nelson.
Mayor Rob Fraser says fire crews and emergency workers have been preparing for a last stand if the fire advances into town. But he's pleased that most people have left the community.
We did really well here on Friday night. We were able to evacuate almost 3,500 people from Fort Nelson First Nation and from town proper, in about 6 hours. We were able to get the hospital folks out. We were able to get the seniors out and the elders out, without any injuries and for the most part, fairly smooth. I understand there's a long lineup.
In the latest update today, BC Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Bowen Ma, says it's rare for an evacuation order of this magnitude this early in the season.
Fire, which started on May 10th, is now over 5,280 hectares and located 2.5 kilometers west of the town of Fort Nelson. The next 48 hours will be a challenging situation for the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, given forecasted ongoing westerly winds and extremely dry and volatile fuels in the area. We may begin to see volatile wildfire activity later this afternoon.
The area has been experiencing drought, but rain is forecast for Wednesday. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
And in Manitoba, some communities near Flin Flon and the Paw have evacuated amidst 2 wildfires near the towns, roughly 7 hours northwest of Winnipeg. But as our reporter Sav Jonesa points out, it's not just locals who are fleeing the flames.
A wildfire in west central Manitoba has nearby residents fleeing for safety. Over the weekend, the wildfire came within 1 kilometer of the town of Cranberry Portage, about 7 hours northwest of Winnipeg. At 38 kilometers long and 12 kilometers wide, the wildfire forced the town and nearby cottage communities to evacuate.
It was growing 2 kilometers on the head, the front of the fire. On the flanks, it was growing over 1 kilometer an hour on the sides. In spots, it was burning against the wind, and it was still roaring along against the wind. So it's we haven't seen that, and it's a combination of the extreme drought conditions and the high winds.
The wildfire is located east of Flin Flon and covers more than 30,000 hectares of land. Simmons says the crews on the scene could be fighting it for as long as even a month from now.
There is a lot of infrastructure. There's logging operations occurring in that area. You got a railroad that goes in to take out to the ore out of Flin Flon, and then you got the communities of Cold Lake, Sheridan, and Puckatawagan that are serviced by the rail line to the north. So a lot of infrastructure, along with the hydro. Hydro's off in Cranberry Portage. They're working to restore the hydro.
The entire community of Cranberry Portage began to leave the town Saturday night. 550 residents have been affected, including a couple hundred students from the town's high school, Frontier Collegiate.
We had somewhere around 200 to 250 students to evacuate, and I'm proud to say that we got them packed up and out of town within less than an hour.
Reg Clausen is the chief superintendent for Frontier School Division, who oversees Frontier Collegiate. He says the students come from around 25 different communities in northern Manitoba, mostly First Nations who don't have a high school or the vocational courses Frontier Collegiate offers. They are luckily all safe, and most have returned to their home communities.
To drag on. We have to start thinking about how do we continue the education for our students now that they're back in their communities, and how do we look after our staff who can't be in their homes, because I think the majority of the population in Cranberry Portage works for Frontier School Division.
He says it's not the first time a school in his division, which covers most of northern Manitoba, has been evacuated due to wildfires. He says the division also helps aid other wildfire-affected communities by providing buses for transportation to safety.
That has been, as of late, a fairly common occurrence given the number of forest fires that have taken place, and this year looks at this point like it's not going to be any different, but we do hope that the rains come and soak everything so that there's less of that.
Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We'd like to hear from you if you're being impacted by wildfires, or if you want to reach out about anything else you've seen here. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. You can read and watch our stories over on our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Time for one more quick break. Still to come, we'll have a profile of an Algonquin artist whose portrait of Lily Gladstone is creating a buzz. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And a recent solar flare provided unprecedented views for many these past couple of days. Kyle Carter shared this view from Victoria, British Columbia. Thanks for sharing. Be sure to keep us in mind and share your photos by email to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, sunny and 20 for Halifax, showers and 18 in Fredericton, cloudy and 13 for Kuujjuaq, 3 in Nain, 20 with showers in Montreal, 15 in Val-d'Or, sun's out and 16 for Sault Ste. Marie, 19 in North Bay, sunny and 15 for Thunder Bay, 16 above under the sun in Sioux Lookout, sunny and 13 in God's Lake, 16 for Norway House, 14 with showers in Winnipeg, 11 and rain in Dauphin. Rain and 18 for Regina, showers and 19 for Saskatoon. 18 with rain in Buffalo Narrows and Stony Rapids. A rainy day across northern Alberta, 21 in Fort McMurray, 18 in Fort Chip. Showers and 20 for Edmonton and Lethbridge. Sun's out and 17 in Vancouver, 26 in Kamloops. 15 with showers in Prince George, rain and 13 in Smithers. 6 above in Old Crow, plus 11 for Whitehorse. 12 and rain in Yellowknife, 14 in Wrigley. Plus 1 in Sax Harbor, snow and minus 2 in Pawlatuck. 4 below in Chesterfield, minus 2 in Arviat. Minus 6 in Resolute, 6 below in Pangertown. A 21-year-old Algonquin artist has been on a natural high since his work was recognized by a well-known Indigenous actress. APTN's Annette Francis caught up with the young artist at his home on the Kitigan-Zibi First Nation in Quebec. He was with the man who taught him how to put pencil to paper. Here's that story.
Gabriel Ottawa and his father Dean share in their love of art.
So for some reason, one of the first pieces I taught him how to do an eye.
Dean is not just Gabriel's dad, he's his first art teacher. When Gabriel was 10, Dean bought him an art table. He's been using it ever since and come a long way. Last week, his portrait of award-winning actress Lily Gladstone went viral on social media.
When she shared it on her post, I sent a DM and I just sent a message saying, like, thank you so much, like, I really appreciate this. But I didn't think she was going to open it, you know, like. So then she responded back and we just had a conversation and we were both just thanking each other basically. And
in spite of that big boost to his ego, Ottawa says art is a form of therapy from his daytime job. He works in his community as a substance abuse counselor, which is sometimes taxing.
It's so therapeutic when you're sitting there and you're listening to your music and you just have kind of like you're just rethinking about your day or you're thinking about the movie or something. It's a complete, I don't know what the proper word is, but kind of like not a distraction, but a really good form of therapy.
Ottawa's dad is a mental health worker. His creative outlet is painting paddles.
I'll do my artwork just to come off from work, and then I'll join my family for supper or whatever, and then I'll jump back on my table, and then that's the end of my day. He'll start his artwork late at night. He's up all night, and then when I get up in the morning, I see what he's accomplished.
A cure for stress is why he's encouraged art all these years.
We have a daughter too as well who is also a counselor, and she also does her own artwork, doing beadwork, sewing, crafts, birch bark. So we've kind of made sure they've always had some kind of art to fall back on. And it really helps them, it grounds them as well.
Ottawa says he's still on cloud 9. He's not sure where he wants to go with this talent.
It's hard to say if I want to get into galleries and things like that. Part of me really wants to get a lot of attention, you know, sometimes we crave that. But at the same time, I'm very happy where I'm at with it. I just like making stuff, and if there's, I do it mainly for myself, and if somebody's interested in buying a painting of a character or something along those lines, I'm like, just have it, you know.
Ottawa's next goal is to attend the Ottawa Comic-Con with some of his finished portraits. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Kitigan-Zibi, Quebec.
Really beautiful stuff. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News tonight. For the latest on anything you've seen here, much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.